Low-income Trump voters are now panicking, realizing, wait a second, this prick's going to slash my benefits. That's right. Here we go again. We've got a story that is becoming all too familiar. It's a classic case of Trump voters realizing they may have been sold a bill of goods, and this time it's happening before Donald Trump is even sworn in. There's a very good piece in the Washington Post by Tim Craig called "After Backing Trump, Low-Income Voters Hope He Doesn't Slash Their Benefits." Voters in the struggling Pennsylvania city of Newcastle backed Trump, hoping he'd curb inflation, but the incoming president will be under pressure to cut spending. So a bunch of examples in this article. Lori Mazura is one such example, a single mom from Newcastle, Pennsylvania, lives on $1,200 a month from Social Security plus food stamps. Her situation is so dire, she bikes to the grocery store because she doesn't have the money to fix her truck. She voted for Trump, and she voted for Trump because she thought he would be a champion for working class Americans. She said, I think he knows it's the poor people that got him elected, so I think Trump is going to do more to help us. Now, we all know that this isn't true, right? Trump's new team, Elon Musk, Vivek, they want to cut $2.5 trillion from the federal budget. You can't do that, really, without cutting from food stamps, Medicaid, the very lifelines that folks like Lori depend on. Lori isn't alone. They interviewed other people from Newcastle. Newcastle is one of these kind of prototypical struggling industrial hubs. It flipped for Trump this election. It's the first time the city voted Republican in nearly 70 years. And a lot of it is because low-income voters who are struggling and have been struggling for a long time under Biden, previously under Trump, they want a change. They want relief. And so Trump says, well, I'll cut inflation and this and that. They said, sounds good to me. Now, there's a couple things that I think are important to talk about here. Of course, it's easy to say these people are just ignorant. Anyone who understands tariffs knows you can't put blanket tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada and expect prices to go down. They are stupid. They deserve now what they voted for. Sure. I mean, you could take that perspective morally, I guess, right? If only they had economic education, they would know when you just put an import tax on everything, which is what a tariff is, prices rarely go down. When you cut taxes for the rich, which Donald Trump wants and plans to do, that's not going to make it so that prices come down for the average person. Fine. It's fine to say that. They should be more informed. And if they were, maybe they wouldn't have fallen for it. But that doesn't change the fact that when these folks struggle, which they will continue to do under the Trump administration, it's bad for everybody, right? Like, even if you say, I don't care about these individual people, if a large swath of the population is struggling in these ways thanks to Trump's policies, it's bad for everybody, regardless of your financial position, if you understand demand side economics. And of course, part of the reason that the article points out now all of these folks are worried is that they're seeing the red flags. They see Trump's budget picks being connected to Project 2025, which straight up says we've got to gut food stamps and other social programs. Even though Trump says, no, we're not going to touch Social Security, we know that his advisors are saying, can we cut Medicaid? Can we cut Social Security? Nothing is sacrosanct. Nothing is off the table. So look at Newcastle, because in a way, it's a great example of what we're dealing with here. 1 in 4 people in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, live in poverty. 90% of the school kids qualify for free lunch. The federal benefits are what's keeping this community afloat. So if Trump cuts those, which he would love to do, this community is absolutely decimated. And yet there are lots of people who are saying, oh, Trump, they quote a woman, Kathy Davis, Trump has so much common sense. Right, but his common sense is pointing him to want to cut the programs you depend on. This is not a surprise. Trump's first term was filled with moves that hurt working class voters, tax cuts for the rich, trying to repeal Obamacare, policies that don't address stagnant wages. But we are finding ourselves here again, watching people who need government programs. Their lifeline is government programs. and they say, I'm throwing my support behind the guy who is setting things up to cut them. And he's bringing in a cabinet and a set of advisors that's going to cut all of this stuff. And the sad part, as one local Democrat put it, is that the voters didn't look at the big picture, which is that when the promised cuts roll in, they are going to start paying the price. So the practical sort of political question that's left is, how many times does this cycle have to repeat itself before they realize Trump's promises are only promises meant to get elected and then do nothing else? How long will it take until voters start regretting their decision? Maybe again. And unfortunately, I mean, listen, Trump's term limited out. They didn't learn it the first time. Biden came in with a different set of economic policies, and it didn't generate enough enthusiasm for Biden and ultimately Kamala Harris to prevent Trump from coming back in. They fell for the same talking points from Trump once again, talking points that are just fluff, stuff Trump either doesn't understand or doesn't intend to do. And based on the history, the regrets creeping in, but will it really do something about them saying, well, this is a party that we really shouldn't vote for at all. We shouldn't fall for it again. Historically, they don't learn like that. And they end up putting right back in power the very sorts of agendas that created this problem for them in the first place. This holiday season, let's remember how powerful it is to have someone in your corner. Have you ever taken a big step as an adult, going back to school, changing careers? Think back to who encouraged you along the way. That's what the 431 Exchange is for so many adult learners. Our sponsor, the 431 Exchange, is a nonprofit that provides scholarships to adults 18 to 75 who are working to transform their lives and support families. The 431 Exchange fills a vital need in Louisiana, which ranks 40th in K through 12 education. We've talked about that. And that means opportunities are limited from an early age. One scholar studying agricultural engineering says, over the past 4 years, I've felt so much love from you all. Words can't express my gratitude. Another scholar at an Ivy League school calls this the most impactful scholarship he's ever received. Inspired by 431 women who integrated secretarial offices in the 1960s, the 431 Exchange allocates 80 cents of every dollar directly to scholarships. They're a 501c3, so donations are tax deductible. Help the David Pakman Show reach our goal of $15,000 in donations by year end at 431exchange.org/Pakman. A generous donor will match all donations up to $15,000 so you can double your impact. Maybe even give a donation in someone else's name as a holiday gift. The link is in the description.